All right, let's jump into another deep dive. Today, we're heading north, eh? We're going to dig into some Canadian politics. And things are getting pretty spicy up there.
Oh, yeah.
You bet. See, we've got this article from First Post. It came out January 3rd, 2025, and the title is Top Question in Canada, When Will Trudeau Quit?
Ooh, that's a loaded question right off the bat.
Right, and it's only January, so you know things are getting even crazier as the year goes on.
Yeah.
The article basically says that speculation is swirling around Justin Trudeau's future as prime minister. And get this, he's been completely MIA since, like, December 16th.
Seriously, totally off the grid.
Gone. Vanished. Poof. Which, you know, holiday break, sure, everyone needs a little time off, right?
Yeah.
But what makes this disappearance extra suspicious is the timing.
Yeah, what's going on there?
Well, right before Trudeau went silent, his Finance Minister, Chrystia Freeland, abruptly resigned. And she was a close political ally.
So a key member of his team bails, and then he just disappears. That's definitely not your average holiday break.
Exactly. I mean, a quick ski trip, no big deal. But weeks of silence. Radio silence. And this isn't some quiet, peaceful time in Canadian politics either.
Definitely not. With everything going on in the world, you'd think the prime minister would want to be front and center, reassuring people.
Right. You'd think. So that begs the question, has a prime minister ever pulled a vanishing act like this before? Especially when things are so, well, uncertain.
It's definitely unusual, I'll say that. It really makes you wonder what's going on behind the scenes. And you got to think, he's facing a ton of pressure to step down.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Especially with that poll from Nanos Research that shows the Conservatives pulling ahead of the Liberals. That can't be good for morale.
No kidding. And that pressure is coming from all sides, not just the opposition. You have Liberal caucus members, some from Trudeau's home province of Quebec even, urging him to resign.
Really? Wow. So it's not just some quiet grumbling. People are actually speaking out against him, even within his own party.
They are. And it's not just behind closed doors either. This guy, Rob Oliphant, he's a Liberal lawmaker from Toronto, he went and posted a letter publicly urging Trudeau to, make way for new leadership.
Whoa, that's a bold move, posting a letter.
What?
Publicly. That's not just a suggestion, that's a statement.
It definitely is. And he's not the only one with concerns. You have another MP, Cody Bloy, who's worried about potential economic instability, things like the possibility of a 25% U.S. tariff on Canadian imports. He's saying a change in leadership is needed, like yesterday.
Yikes. A 25% tariff, that would be a huge blow. So it's not just about Trudeau's popularity, it's about real-world economic concerns. This tariff talk is serious business.
Yeah, absolutely. People are worried about their livelihoods, their jobs, their future. So let's say the pressure keeps mounting, right? Can Trudeau actually be forced out? Like, what are the rules for kicking out a prime minister in Canada?
That's a good question. Is it like here where they can, impeach him or something?
Not exactly. It's not quite as straightforward as you might think. I mean, he could always choose to resign, of course.
Which, let's be honest, wouldn't be a total shocker at this point, right?
True. But if he decides to dig in his heels, things get a little more complicated. Parliament could hold a no-confidence vote.
A no-confidence vote? What's that?
It's basically a vote to see if the current government, Trudeau's government, still has the support of the majority of Parliament.
So it's like a big thumbs up or thumbs down on Trudeau's leadership.
Exactly. And if they vote no confidence, meaning they lose the vote, it would probably trigger a new election. And remember those polls we talked about?
Yeah, with the Conservatives ahead.
Exactly. A snap election right now, that could easily swing things in their favor.
Whoa, that would be a wild turn of events. Imagine going from a majority government to being totally wiped out in an election. The article even quotes this Canadian historian, Robert Bothwell, saying Trudeau could be erased in that scenario.
Yeah, the stakes are really high. So we've got three possible scenarios here. 1, Trudeau steps down. 2, he faces this no-confidence vote and loses, probably leading to a Conservative victory. Or 3, he survives the vote and sticks around until the next scheduled election.
3 paths, each with its own set of consequences. So we've got a prime minister who's gone AWOL, mounting pressure from his own party, a potential no-confidence vote looming. It's like a political thriller unfolding right before our eyes.
Absolutely. It'll be interesting to see how this all plays out.
It definitely will. But let's take a step back for a second. For someone who's not glued to Canadian politics 204/7, why should they care about all this drama?
That's a great question. It's easy to think, oh, that's Canada's problem, but what happens up north doesn't always stay up north.
Oh, tell me about it. What happens with our neighbors to the north definitely has an impact on us down here. So why don't we zoom out a little bit? you were saying earlier that a stable and prosperous Canada, it's good for the world.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So why is Canada so important on the global stage? Break it down for us.
Well, first of all, they're a G7 country, right? Strong economy, committed to free trade. They've got this solid reputation as diplomats and peacekeepers.
Yeah, Mr. Rogers' neighborhood and all that, right?
Exactly, exactly. And they're big players in all the international organizations, the UN, NATO, you name it. And they really use that position to advocate for things like climate change, human rights, global development, all the important stuff.
It's not just about their size or economic power. It's more about the values they represent.
Exactly. Canada, they kind of act as a stabilizing force in the world.
Okay.
Like think of them as the good neighbor, always trying to do the right thing, bring folks together.
Well, I like that. The good neighbor. Okay, so that makes sense. But what if that good neighbor starts, having some problems at home? What happens then? What are some of the consequences the world might see if Canada were to become, less stable, either politically or economically?
Well, let's start with the economy. If the Canadian economy weakens, it's going to impact global trade big time. I mean, they're a major exporter. Natural resources, agricultural products, all kinds of manufactured goods.
Oh, yeah, the maple syrup.
Exactly. And if there's any kind of disruption, with them producing or exporting these goods, it's going to create this ripple effect on supply chains and prices all over the world.
Yeah, and I imagine this would be especially true for the U.S., given, how closely our economies are tied.
Oh, absolutely. We're talking about each other's biggest trading partners here.
Oh, wow.
Any trade war or a significant economic downturn in Canada, it's going to be felt down here big time.
Yeah.
Just think about the impact on industries, manufacturing, agriculture, energy.
And it's not just a one-way street either.
No, not at all.
We were talking about those retaliatory tariffs. That would hit American businesses and consumers pretty hard too, right?
You got it. So it's not just Canadians who need to be paying attention to all of this potential trade war. It could be hitting American wallets too.
Nobody wants to see prices going up even more.
Right.
Okay, but it's not just about the money, right?
No. There's more to it than that. A less stable Canada, well, that could affect global security too. I mean, think about it. Canada is a crucial part of NATO. They contribute to peacekeeping missions, collective defense efforts, all that. If they get bogged down with internal problems or if their economy takes a hit, well, they might not be able to contribute as much to global security.
Yeah, and that's a little unsettling to think about. Plus, I imagine their absence would be felt in other areas of international cooperation too, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Canada, they're a leader when it comes to promoting multilateralism, diplomacy, right?
Yeah.
They're super involved in tackling global issues like climate change, pandemics, poverty, all that stuff. A weakened Canada could mean a weaker voice for these important issues on the world stage.
Yeah, that's a good point. So we've established that what happens in Canada, it matters.
Yeah.
It's not just some internal Canadian drama. It really could have an impact on global economics, security, and cooperation.
Absolutely. And it just underscores why it's so important to be aware of what's happening in Canada, even if you're not Canadian.
It's like that butterfly effect, right?
Exactly. Exactly. What happens there can have real consequences for everyone.
Okay, so let's bring things back down to earth a little bit. A lot of people are listening. They're probably thinking, okay, you're talking about this trade war, but what does that actually mean for me? How's it going to affect my everyday life?
Yeah, that's a good point.
What are some real-world consequences that, the average person might experience?
Well, the most immediate impact would probably be on your wallet. A trade war means higher prices for a lot of everyday goods. Everything from groceries to cars to electronics. Those tariffs, they make imported goods more expensive.
So basically, a trip to the supermarket could turn into a real budget buster.
Yeah. And it's not just about consumer goods either. A trade war could really mess with supply chains, meaning there might be shortages of certain things or delays in getting goods to stores.
So we're not just talking about paying more. We might not even be able to find what we need.
Yeah, it could get pretty chaotic.
That's a scary thought.
And beyond all that, trade wars, they can breed tension, even hostility between countries. That makes it a lot harder to work together on other big problems like climate change or international security.
Yeah, it seems like nobody really wins in a trade war.
You got it. It's a lose-lose. That's why it's so important to try to find common ground, work things out through diplomacy.
Okay, but even if, best case scenario, they avoid an all-out trade war, just the uncertainty of the situation, it has to be having some kind of impact, right?
Oh, absolutely.
So what are you seeing?
Well, uncertainty just breeds instability. Businesses get nervous about investing, consumers get hesitant to spend because they're worried about the economy, their jobs, and all of that can lead to an economic slowdown, which, let's be honest, nobody wants.
Yeah, it's like this dark cloud hanging over everything, making everybody anxious.
Yeah. Exactly. And that's why strong leadership is so important right now. People need someone they can trust, someone who's going to provide stability, reassurance, a clear path forward.
Which brings us right back to Canada and, well, the big question mark hanging over their leadership. Trudeau's gone MIA. It's created this vacuum at a time when, the country's facing some pretty serious challenges. So let's finally talk about those potential replacements, the ones waiting in the wings. Who are the contenders and what are their strengths and weaknesses?
All right, let's dive into that. And you know what? This is where things get really interesting. Depending on who steps up to lead, the future of Canada, maybe even its role on the world stage, it could change dramatically.
Okay, I'm ready for some political fortune telling. Give me the names, the strengths, the weaknesses, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
Who are we watching?
Okay, well, let's start with the Liberals, since they're the ones in power right now. And the name that jumps out right away, Chrystia Freeland.
Wait, Freeland? The finance minister who just resigned?
Yeah, no, it sounds a little weird, right?
That's a curveball.
But think about it. She's super popular within the Liberal Party. They see her as competent, experienced, a strong communicator.
Okay, yeah.
And her resignation, it could actually be a smart move, a way to distance herself from Trudeau, while his popularity is taking a hit.
Oh, I get it. Like abandon ship before it sinks.
Exactly. By stepping aside, she becomes the fresh face, the one who can offer a break from the past.
Pretty slick. So she's got the experience, the popularity, and now she's got that outsider status, even though she was just in the inner circle. What about weaknesses? Anything there?
Well, being so close to Trudeau could still hurt her.
Right.
Some voters might see her as more of the same, especially if they're looking for a real shakeup.
So her biggest strength could also be her biggest weakness. It all depends on how people see it.
You got it. Another challenge for Freeland. She doesn't have a strong base in Quebec, and that's a big deal for any Liberal leader hoping to win.
Ah, yes, Quebec. I've heard they can make or break a prime minister's ambitions.
That's for sure. So while Freeland's definitely a strong contender, she's not a guaranteed winner.
Okay, so who else is in the running on the Liberal side?
Another name that's been floating around is François-Philippe Champagne. He's the current Minister of Innovation, Science, and Industry, and he's got a pretty solid track record.
Champagne. I haven't heard much about him. What's he all about? What are his strong points?
Well, people see Champagne as a pragmatist, focused on results. And get this, he's got a strong base of support in Quebec.
Oh, so he's got that key Quebec connection.
He does. And people also see him as a bit of a policy wonk. He really understands the complexities of, all the issues Canada's dealing with.
So he's got the brains and the regional support. Sounds promising. Any weaknesses?
Some critics say he's not very charismatic, that he lacks that, star power that you need to win over voters in a big election.
Oh, the it factor.
Exactly. He might struggle to connect with people on an emotional level, really get them excited.
Oh. So it's Freeland versus Champagne. Freeland's got the name recognition, but maybe a little too close to Trudeau. Champagne's got the policy chops, but maybe not the personality. It's like a classic political dilemma.
It is. It shows you there's no perfect candidate, right?
Yeah.
Everyone comes with their own pluses and minuses.
Okay, so we've got our Liberal contenders, but we can't forget about the other side. Who are the potential prime ministers in waiting over on the Conservative side?
Well, as we mentioned earlier, the Conservatives are leading in the polls right now. And their leader, Pierre Poilievre, he's a real force to be reckoned with.
Oh, yeah, Poilievre. He's been making headlines.
Yeah, for sure. He's young, charismatic, a real smooth talker. And he has been relentless in criticizing Trudeau's government.
So he's tapping into that frustration a lot of Canadians are feeling, the ones who, are feeling the pinch of the economy and want something different.
Exactly. He's playing that outsider card, even though he's been in politics for a while.
Oh, that's a classic move.
And he's doing a good job of framing the narrative around these economic problems. He blames Trudeau's policies for inflation and the rising cost of living.
So it's the classic populist playbook. Appeal to people's anxieties, promise a return to the good old days.
You got it. And it seems to be working. A lot of voters are buying it, especially the ones struggling to make ends meet.
Yeah, I can see how that message would resonate right now. So if Trudeau were to step down or, lose that no confidence vote, we could be looking at a Poilievre-led conservative government. That would be a big change for Canada.
Oh, yeah, huge shift. And it would definitely have an impact on a lot of things. Canada's relationship with the U.S., their approach to climate change, their whole role in the world.
Okay, so we've got our liberal contenders, Freeland and Champagne, and our conservative frontrunner, Poilievre.
Sure.
But is there anyone else out there, maybe someone under the radar who could shake things up? A dark horse, maybe?
You know, it's politics. Anything can happen. Keep an eye on some of the younger politicians, the up-and-comers from all the parties. They might just surprise us. Politics is full of unexpected twists and turns, right?
That's for sure. So we've got this potential leadership shuffle,
Yeah.
the economic uncertainty, the whole trade war thing looming in the background. It's a lot for Canadians to deal with.
It is, and it brings up a really important question for all of us. What kind of qualities should Canadians be looking for in their next leader, given all these challenges?
That's a great question, and it's something we're going to dig into in the final part of our deep dive. We'll explore the leadership qualities that really matter in these uncertain times. So stay tuned.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We've been talking all about the drama unfolding in Canadian politics, from Trudeau's extended absence to the possibility of a trade war with the U.S. and what it could mean for the world if Canada stumbles on the global stage. Now, the big question is, if Trudeau does step down, who's got the right stuff to steer Canada through all of this? Yeah, that's the question on everyone's mind. It's not just about filling a seat. It's about finding a leader who can handle a whole bunch of complex problems: the economy, international relations, domestic issues, all of it.
So forget popularity or catchy slogans. We're talking substance here. What specific qualities should Canadians be looking for in their next prime minister?
Well, given all the economic uncertainty, I think strong economic leadership is absolutely essential. They need someone who understands how global markets work, someone who can inspire confidence in investors and create a good environment for businesses to succeed.
So it's not just about keeping the books balanced. It's about having a plan for economic growth and knowing how to make it happen.
Exactly. Understanding what's going on both inside Canada and around the world, and being able to make tough decisions when they have to. This leader needs to be able to convince Canadians that their future is in good hands.
Okay, so economic competence is a must-have. But Canada also needs a leader who can navigate the world of international relations, especially with the U.S. being so unpredictable these days.
Absolutely. The next prime minister will need some serious diplomatic skills. Think about it. Negotiating trade deals, resolving disputes, building alliances, representing Canada's interests on the world stage. It takes a special kind of person to do all that.
Someone who can smooth talk their way through anything.
Right, someone who can play the diplomatic game and not get played themselves. But these days, it seems like being a smooth talker isn't always enough.
You're right. It takes more than just talk to solve some of the problems the world is facing right now.
Exactly. Climate change, global security threats, authoritarianism on the rise. These challenges demand a leader who's not afraid to take a stand and defend democratic values.
So we're not just looking for a diplomat. We're looking for someone who's a bit of a fighter, too. Someone who stands up for what's right.
Exactly. Someone who has the courage to stand up for Canadian values and interests, even when it's tough.
Okay, so we've got economic competence, diplomatic skills, and the courage to stand up for what's right. What else should be on our leadership checklist?
Well, with all the political polarization these days, Canada needs a leader who can bring people together, bridge the divides, find common ground.
It's like everyone's retreating into their own little camps these days, refusing to even listen to other points of view.
It's true, and it's creating so much division and anger. That's why it's so important to have a leader who can rise above all that noise, appeal to those shared values that connect us, and remind us that we're all in this together.
So we need a unifier, someone who can heal those divisions and remind Canadians that they're more alike than different.
Exactly. And all of these qualities, they need to be rooted in something even more fundamental: integrity.
Integrity, is that even a thing anymore? Seems like it's in short supply these days.
It's sad, but true. But now, more than ever, Canadians need a leader they can trust. Someone who is honest, transparent, and accountable. Someone who does the right thing, even when it's hard, and always puts the interests of Canadians first.
So we're looking for a leader who's economically savvy, a skilled diplomat, courageous, a unifier, and has rock-solid integrity. That's a tall order.
It is. But those are the qualities that really matter in these uncertain times. Those are the qualities that will determine whether Canada can overcome these challenges and come out stronger on the other side.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Canadian politics, what's the key message for our listeners?
I think it comes down to this. Pay attention to what's happening in the world, ask questions, and have thoughtful conversations about the qualities that truly matter in leadership. The decisions made in Canada, just like in any democracy, have an impact far beyond their own borders.
Well said. And remember, an informed citizenry is the best defense against those who want to exploit divisions and weaken democracy. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone. Until next time, stay curious, keep exploring, and keep asking those tough questions.